Wow. Yeah, I like the tone of this conference. Everybody seems to be calm and collected, easy. And the way they're talking about this thing, it's like, it's okay, guys. Things are going to be a little bit tough. But we got it covered. We got it sorted. So, and I guess we need to reflect quite a little bit more on what Ken has just shared. I like when he says he wants to retire. And I'm like, dude, you seem to be just starting. Now you're saying you want to retire. Probably he feels he's run his mile. And it's important that we reflect deeply on some of these sentiments that he's raising. But then he talks really about what the ecosystem is all about and the things that we need to be paying attention to, the talent, how are we growing the people, how are we building structures within our companies. If our intention is to be attractive, how are we structuring the different initiatives that we are trying to work with so that it's not just a pick and play. And so to get us into deep reflections, what Ken has just shared, allow me to also remind you that we do have virtual booths, and we have a couple of entities that are exhibiting in those booths. So check out MTN, DFCU, the UNCDF, Stanbic, Bank, FlyHub, PayTota, Yo Uganda, Smile Identity, InterSwitch, Raxio, Data Center, Zofikash, Fintech Group, Abi Finance Limited, Standard Chartered Bank, and NEPSAV. And I would really encourage you as much as possible to have that interaction and engagement. Now, to get us started off our first panel, and I'd like to also encourage you as much as possible to post your questions in the question section, because that's what we're going to use to pick out the questions that will be responded to by the panel. Allow me invite the Director, National Payment Systems Department at the Bank of Uganda, Mr. Makay Oum. Like Peter has said, his uncle, did you say Uncle Oum? Uncle Makay. I like how the FITSPA is relating with their regulator. When they start calling you uncle, that means things are really, really good. So, Uncle Makay, please come and take your seat. We also have Mrs. Edith Kutesa, the Managing Director of MCash. Please come and take your seat up front. And we'll be joined by Wilbrod Owol, the Executive Director of the Uganda Bankers Association. One of our panelists is not able to join us, but that's the beauty of being virtual, that we work with what is available and we make it happen. So you can take that. And allow me, I come from a teaching background, and sometimes, and I'm not saying that you're going to be my students, but I always want to have the contact. And so when I'm engaging with people, I want to see them. When I sit here, I will probably be trying to pull my neck out. And other than, I think Wilbrod, I just need to see the headline and I'll know he's present. The rest I probably have to pull out. But allow me to stand and then engage with you. So, we are here to deal with the session on the National Payment Systems Regulation. It's been quite a conversation, and there's been a lot that has been said and continues to be said around these payment systems. And I'm going to start with Uncle Makay and really try and help us, educate us what this means for the sector, what are some of the things that we need to be excited about, but from a regulator, what are the things that you're going to be looking out for when you come with your whip? Because even good uncles always have a whip somewhere to put people into the straight line. So, over to you to get started, to get us started. Thank you.
Hello. I think my distance is good enough.
Yes, it is.
So I can keep down my mask.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael.
Pleasure.
Okay. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm grateful for the baptism at the onset. Uncle Makai, this is what I get at family level. So that FITSPA coming again to emphasize it means it reminds me of the days at the university. We used to have Uncle George Guru. I was with Wilbrod was my guild president. So we used to call him Uncle George. So it's a very good day for me. I feel happy to be here to meet all of you. And I think you want me to talk about the National Payment Systems Act briefly. Ladies and gentlemen, I think to talk about the National Payment Systems Act is first to be very clear about what national payment systems are. And I would like to keep it very simple, that national payment systems, to keep it very basic, you can look at it like a money plumbing system of the economy that ensures effective transmission of monetary policy. I'll continue to explain it. Time and again, the central bank announces CBR is going down, says we expect bankers to bring down interest rates. But if the payment systems are not efficient and effectively working, this may not be possible because the banks may not have the funds, so the cost of funds will still remain high. Why? Because the money is, say, a lot of it is in the informal sector. So payment systems help to create linkages to ensure efficiency and bring this kind of funds into the formal system. Like we've achieved this through the agent banking model, which has worked very well. I'm happy to note that 85% of the transactions at the agents are deposits. So this is a channel through which money comes into the formal system, and this money can be available for intermediation. Similarly, talking about transmission of monetary policy, sometimes we have to do what they call open market operations, mop out liquidity or inject money, selling of government securities, treasury bills. But if the payment systems are not safe, are not efficient, then this will not work. So I'm trying to say that Bank of Uganda provides support. There's what they call CSD, Central Securities Depository Systems, for primary dealers like banks and other banks that are involved in securities. So the systems must talk with the Bank of Uganda systems. So this is where we came traditionally, the central bank running systems. What I've tried to talk about is about RTGS. It's about automated clearinghouse. I'm talking about support to CSDs. But since 2009, we started to see innovations, the advent of mobile money. And this was telecom-led, and since they are not financial institutions, the central bank advised them to partner with financial institutions, and so that they could be allowed to issue electronic money. So this was some kind of indirect regulation which went on for almost 10 years. I'm happy that in September 2020, the National Payment Systems Act was enacted, and in March 2021, implementing regulations, the key ones, were passed. So what this act is doing is try to create an orderly entry into the payment space, how you can be allowed to operate, what you're expected to do while there, and how you can exit, like all laws. But this has been supported by implementing regulations. But before that, let me explain what is this act is for who. So we talk about payment service providers, and this could include banks, MDIs. It could include issuers of electronic money. So the term we're using is payment service providers. Then the other group broadly is to say payment system operators. Payment systems operators could mean like switches like InterSwitch, ABC, shared banking platform, could mean aggregators and integrators like Pegasus and many other fintechs. So the law is largely about that. It says how you come in, how you're expected to behave, and how you can exit. It is supported by 3 regulations so far. The first one is more like NPS general regulation about licensing, mainly. And the second one is about agents, how agents are supposed to be recruited. But we, as the bank, we moved away from micromanagement of agents, provided there clear agreements between, say, the electronic money issuers and the agents and the systems, risk management, and all these procedures are okay. For us, we look at the documents, and if this is okay, we allow you to go on. And also, there's what they call Regulator Sandbox. I think that's the one the fintechs are quite excited about. So Regulator Sandbox is this is to promote innovations because fintechs is about real innovation, financial innovations. So you're allowed to come into the payment system space, limited access, to test a product. Basically, you're given 6 months to do this. If you're not successful within the 6 months, you could have an extension of 6 more months, altogether making 12 months, but without having to have a license. No license. If the product is successful, then you can come back and ask for licensing. Actually, one of those we allowed, we gave approval, we have transfer, has already come back to ask for a license because their product has been successful. And we encourage fintechs. Within the bank, within the structure, we have an office for fintech innovations. We have an open policy. Time and again, these days, it's mainly through webinars. We have meetings, online meetings. Fintechs come with different products. We look at them, we review them. We look at different aspects, risk management, safety, efficiency. And if everything is okay, you can be allowed to test that product in a live environment. And there are no capital requirements. It's basically application fee of 1 million shillings, which we think is affordable to most of the fintechs, so that we don't stifle innovations. I know that there's a lot I could say, but maybe I have to limit it. Maybe I'll make 3 or 4 points. The law says that you must be, for electronic money issuance, you must be a legal subsidiary only for electronic money issuance. So that meant that Airtel had to incorporate a company only dealing with money, so was MTN and the others. The law also comes with the issues of what a trust account. Originally, it was supposed to be an escrow account. Now, because this money is held in trust, so there's issue of having trustees to manage these accounts, and the issue of ensuring that this money remains liquid, because every unit of electronic money must be backed by a shilling in the trust account. How to handle dormant accounts, what is allowed, what is not allowed, capital requirements, minimum capital requirements. Of course, we see that there are many challenges. We have interacted with the fintechs. Time and again, we have meetings or telephone conversation. I think that's why I got baptized today. And we see many challenges still there, even within the law. Much as the law is still young, I think we'll have to do some reforms, some amendments as we go along. One of the first ones we saw was about minimum capital requirements. We had 3 tiers, but we have quickly had to review it to create 6 tiers. So you have capital requirements, what we call micro, SME, and then we have medium 1, 2, 3, and then large. So this allows a wider space for many participants to join in. So like I said, okay, maybe I need to mention that so far we have given 5 licenses. Well, 1 regulatory sandbox approval. The 5 licenses include Airtel, MTN, Mcash, MicroPay. We have also given a payment system operator license to InterSwitch. And we have a pipeline, other pipelines which are almost at the conclusion stage. We are still evaluating them, but I think 1 more is coming out soon. Then we gave 1 a regulatory sandbox approval. But I think the question you'll ask, are all the 170 plus fintechs going to be regulated? Maybe not. But we'll encourage participation in the Regulator Sandbox. I think that's where the fintechs are going to play. Because we look at it from a risk perspective. We look at a system and say, is it systemic? Meaning, if there's a problem with one, how will it affect the other participants? Two, we look at the financial risks in terms of value, monetary value. Three, we look at the volumes, market penetration. But we also look at system, what they call, how prominent it is. Without it, what would happen? Is it the only one? What's the volume of transactions being processed? So this meant that we had to put into public domain what we call regulator oversight framework. We have also put in a public domain what we call the Regulator Sandbox framework. And these are available on the Bank of Uganda website. So if you go to the website now, you'll get the act, you'll get the regulations, you get Regulator Sandbox framework, you also get the oversight framework. I could go on and on, but I think I need to maybe stop here.
I'm definitely going to pick up on a number of things that you have raised, but I also feel it's not often that you have a regulator speak to you from, I'm here to support you, I want to help you. And so I think Peter was right to baptize, I don't know whether he's one of the disciples, but but yes, thank you, Mr. Oum, because I think you paint the picture. You give the general landscape and the things that are emerging. But one of the things that I've taken away from you is that the cognizance of the fact that this is evolving and is evolving very fast. And therefore, the willingness to make sure that you have it aligned to the ecosystem as it evolves. And probably I'll pick on to Mrs. Edith Kutesa. And as somebody who has just gone through this process, I don't know what it means for you or what the experience has been. So if you could help paint a picture and as a player in the ecosystem, the real value proposition that you get out of this. So speak to us around that, and then I'll pick on to Wilbrod, because Wilbrod now is like the middleman, really, if I could put it that way. He's listening to the banks, but he's also quite interested in what is happening in the fintech space as well. Yeah, so Edith.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Show my face.
Please do.
Good morning, everybody.
I think you need to. Yeah.
It's okay. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Participant present and online, fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. Generally, when it comes for fintech, I send my CEO, who is a very smart software engineer, Kenneth Kwesiga. I hope he's watching. And so I'm happy to be here and to share the experience of getting a license, but also let us speak about our expectation being licensed. I may say that the experience was largely very helpful from both FITSPA and BOU. And it's a good occasion for me to really extend my thanks for Mr. McKay and his team, especially Mr. Andrew Kawere, a man you can call even in the middle of the night, asking the format, what to do. It has really been very supportive a journey. FITSPA, first of all, congratulations for this third annual meeting. But I think we wouldn't have been able to bring contribution, to make our voice heard if we did not have this umbrella organization. Mm-hmm. And I really want to commend them for the work done during the discussion for the Act and the regulations and the engagement that we have had. And I remember that when my CEO was asking us to join the organization, I was like, hey, oh, what can we do? Oh, we are going again to spend money. But it was very helpful, and thank you so much. I may say also that getting a BOU license for us came in handy because we were already semi-regulated through a non-objection through our bank partner, where we held our settlement account, escrow account. And it has helped us to put some of the compliance systems in place. Though I may say that there was a bit of disruption, and I'm happy that Mr. McKay mentioned about some requirements which the bank is reviewing. As a fintech, as small companies like where we are, there are a number of things that we don't get right because of the constraint of our finances. Sometime, and mainly is in the governance area. We normally operate with lean board members. We sometimes combine functions from one staff because you can't get more. the revenues are tight. So we organize ourselves, we find our way, but when you start being regulated, then it makes sense for us to start streamlining your function and assure that there is a separation of duty, and also have a strong board, which comes with some expenses. But we have seen value in this exercise. We also, I may say, this process has been educative for us. One, I have just mentioned about the compliance and management, streamline processes and other things. We learn a lot, and we think also that this was important. We realized a number of risks that we did not apprehend before, because you are not yet a big operator, you have a limited transaction, but the process has helped us to understand what it takes if you want to be big and handle a number of transactions. But also we realized that if we want to aspire for more interoperability, more partnership, this regulation will help more. Will give us that assurance of partnering, and we are seeing it. So for us, the experience has been educative, a bit disruptive. Yes, but necessary. And I think it is achievable. And I encourage many others like us not to fear, because you come stronger, you come with a sense of really running an organized institution. Thank you.
Oh, wow. So a couple of things I'm picking from you. And I'm glad that we are able to have this frank conversation, because it's an area of interest, it's an area of concern. And I always share with some of the people that I've had an opportunity to work with, you can't run away from some of these things that you're talking about, governance, systems, if you have intentions of scale. That if anybody is going to make an investment, even without regulation, if anybody is going to make investment in your company, the first thing they're going to look at, will this money be safe and will it do what it intends to do? But as we dig deep into this, I like to hear from Wilbrod. Wilbrod, yes, you, like I said, you represent entities that are playing in and not playing in, if I could put it that way, because like we're seeing some of these, the people that you've been working with, the main banks, are also getting into this space and setting up entities that are largely fintech companies. So I'd like to hear your perspective about this space and what your reflections are.
Thank you very much. I think let me also lower this a bit. First of all, let me thank FITSPA for inviting us and for putting this together, and my co-panelists, including our keynote speaker. It's wonderful to hear the journey of registration and licensing. Obviously, the institutions that I speak for are licensed institutions. They have been in regulation, risk, compliance requirements. So we are quite familiar with that particular space. But I think more importantly, how do we see the NPSA and shaping the situation? First of all, we very much welcome the National Payment Systems Act because it brings order, it brings oversight, it brings rules. Most importantly, it brings standards. Operating systems, data security systems, network systems, business applications, and corporate governance. The financial sector thrives on integrity of the system, the safety of the system. It's all about risk management because we are playing in the money space. And fintechs, I don't know, you say that we are in the middle. I'm struggling to see where we are. When I still used to quote, there used to be a middleman or a middlewoman. Okay? Sometimes they're also called midwives, the person who helps deliver or enable, something come into life. So fintechs are such huge necessary partners in this time of the world, more than ever. Because of the sheer amount of enablement they're able to help with. So they are partners, co-creators today. I don't know what word to use. They are part and parcel. And therefore, the more they get into the organized space, the more the frameworks are put in place to mitigate risk. It is a very welcome plus for us. Because we are dealing with people's money, we are dealing with movement of money. We are dealing with movement of a lot of money and to a lot of people. And therefore, when anything happens in between and the various solutions, and there isn't enough trust or confidence into that system, it undermines the entire business. So this regulation, in a nutshell, brings that order, integrity, rules, and a framework for risk. As we discuss further, of course, we shall go into the detail of then how can we enhance that. But listening to her, listening to Ken and the journey, is a lot of learning. The beauty that we continue to admire from the fintechs is the innovation that it comes with, and of course to make sure regulation doesn't, constrain that level of innovation. But overall, I would say it's a very, very good direction. We have a common agenda that we'll speak to as we go further in the discussion, so that we see how can we harness the opportunity that fintechs bring to the space. How can the muscle in the financial sector be applied to work better with the fintechs, so that what are those common goals together that we can work on and expand this either by way of reach, products and services, continue to build integrity in our systems. So as an industry, we support the bill, we welcome it, and what better way to work with FITSPA and the rest of the teams, including fintechs, to leverage this particular law. Thank you.
Thank you. And I mean, the mainstream financial sector, the mainstream banking sector has been quite regulated for a long time. And so listening to you, I mean, first is the acknowledgement that there's no way you can ably say, we put you outside. We need to work together. It's necessary. The other thing that I'm hearing from you is that you share your own experiences, that once you're regulated, then there are certain standards that come into play. There are certain integrity comes in. And a lot of these things, and I think Edith did allude to that there are things that probably they were not giving attention, given the consideration of financial the investment that is required, but now have to give that the attention. And so I'd like to pick from you, Wilbur, just to follow on. Because of the integral role that fintech plays, if you were to give guidance, what would you be looking at in terms of as they come on board and go through this whole process? Now, people like Mcash or InterSwitch that have gone through the process, probably this may not, but I'm speaking to the person who is there sitting on the hedge of fence and trying to say, these guys are just here to kill us. What would be your guidance?
Thank you very much. First of all, the way the regulation has been structured, the regulation recognizes there are different layers, even among the fintechs.
Okay.
And therefore, there are different types of licenses. So I would encourage those not to stay behind the one you talked about, to fear.
Yes.
Life is about a journey. Many years, I never used to have the type of hair I have today. So it's a journey, and nothing is impossible. And I think the story of Ken just confirmed this. There are different stages, and you start somewhere. You always never start with everything. Bank of Uganda is kind enough. They sometimes can give you provisional. There is a sandbox framework to allow you taste. And so I think the environment is good. I think the question is, what do we do as an industry with the rest of the fintechs under the umbrella either of FITSPA or any other framework? And how do we build on this? I think there's a common agenda. Quite clearly, there's a huge, in this part of the world, we have not yet reached very many people. We are not yet touching a big section of the population. And I think it is our job to do that, to ensure that that happens. And like I said, fintechs are very important enablers. They are partners in all our strategy sessions. Today, more than ever, we plan with them in mind and to work together. And therefore, the word collaboration, coordination, if there is any way I would have added to the theme, that must be the center of it today. And you start doing that by saying, where are the areas for which we need to work closer? And I just mentioned standards, just for the integrity, first of all, of our collaboration and reach. So there are common themes like cyber security, cyber fraud. These are non-competitive issues. If they happen, they damage everybody. Yeah, the cost of certain services to deliver fintech services or financial services, whether it's an IT or whatever it is, if we jointly look at these things together, okay, they're important. There are sandboxes we have talked about. There are more opportunities even to negotiate with the regulators further, to lobby, to change legislation. There are more opportunities in the fintech space, especially those brought about by technologies like blockchain. And so building certified IT auditors, things that bring integrity to the system. And any other rails and infrastructure that can then be shared and bring down the cost but enable reach. And today with APIs and plugging in of other technologies, bring variety of products and services. So there are quite clearly common areas that we can work on. I think she mentioned that, Edith mentioned that, and you said it rightly as well, some of the fintechs are at different stages, and funding and capital can be a challenge. What framework do we put in place to enable that happen, or raising of funds, even before the venture capitalists and other funders come into play? Mm-hmm. And this is where our collaboration must really be shaped. We have been having side conversations with Bank of Uganda on how to put together a fund that we all contribute to, all players, whether banks, fintechs, MNOs, all those in the payments ecosystem, so that we build this fund and it addresses certain benchmarks, some of which I've mentioned, so that it enables the fintech scale up to the level that brings comfort. Because the more comfortable we are, because more and more the financial sector is relying on fintechs to perform certain roles or drive or run certain roles for them. And for as long as they step up their security standards, their process standards, their application standards, the better. And where they're short on such funds, this fund and framework can then work. And we've put some ideas on how that fund can be built. I think that if there's a takeaway again, we need to work on further, so that we support and take forward this particular partnership.
Thank you, Wilbert. I think you and I'm glad this was a follow-on and you're able to raise some of the things that can we work together? Can we build resilience together? It doesn't add any value for us to build in our own silos. And I'd like to come to you, Mr. Oum, and ask the question around the perception around regulation. Many times is the perception of stifle, is the perception of get me out of the business. And I'm speaking this from many of these entities that we are working with. My question to you is, and Wilbur talks about collaboration, coordination. This space is a multi-billion-dollar space. So implying that the technology that is built here, well-groomed, has the capacity to become a revenue generation for the economy, not just internal, but also external. How do we envisage this as an ecosystem, not just a payments enabler, but just as part of the economy? Like you see agriculture, the way you see tourism. How do we, from a regulation perspective, how do we cultivate that? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Indeed, it makes a lot of sense. You are aware that innovations tend to be ahead of regulation in all jurisdictions. So, indeed, if you don't think through carefully, then you can stifle. Yeah. So, what the central bank did is we have taken a nurturing approach, because this discussion of the bill started more than 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. But when we opened the doors, we still saw that the prospective participants were not fully prepared. So provided the key conditions had been met, we took what we gave conditional, like we gave some conditions. So we gave approvals with some terms and conditions with the timelines. Mm-hmm. So that helps the fintechs to organize their house and come back to us. But of course comes with the timelines, and then that helps us to provide oversight to see whether compliance has been achieved. So indeed we took a nurturing approach, because if you look at like mobile money, it has been here for over 10 years. And you want to, it's doing a very good job already. It's provided a lot of access in terms of financial inclusion. We were seeing now financial inclusion at 78% included last FinScope, most recent. And mobile money is the main driver of all this. So that's the approach we have taken. And so long as we specify conditions which have to be fulfilled, we give time frames within to do that, and the fintechs are free to come back to us and we can discuss where they have some challenges. Indeed, like governance issues, like Edith explained, for a small setup, we may not be able to meet all the regulatory requirements immediately, but to give room and some time for you to put the house in order. One of the most difficult one, you'll find the shareholder. This could be the CEO. Then he also wants to be in the board.
You're literally telling all the fintech entities, the founder, CEO, and chair.
Maybe you stay in the board and then get somebody to run the business. So, the business has been successful because of me.
Yeah.
If I leave this, now you find in management, shareholders in management, and then the CEO is not a shareholder.
Yes.
So these are the challenges but we understand that with time this gets streamlined, because the business has been going on already. Mm. And we have put a lot of emphasis on collaboration, because with this one you have to collaborate with the private sector. This is a private sector led innovation, and the best you can do is to work together. So indeed, the fintechs present here will know that. Well, meetings, we've even had to form a governance forum to meet the CEOs of fintechs on a quarterly basis. Mm. And we work hand in hand with UBA. And working with UBA has helped us get to understand a broader light, working with fintechs, and what are some of the bottlenecks that are still there. Things like infrastructure, not yet adequate, issues of interoperability, connectivity issues, digital financial literacy. So all this cannot be done by the central bank, but has to be done in a collaboration. We have to work together. And he has talked about infrastructure. That's what Wilbur has mentioned. Whether we can have a common fund, pool of funds put together. We're working in this direction. We're also working into a national switch direction. Ultimately, we're seeing that how can we bring down the costs. When the costs go down, then you benefit from economies of many people enrolling and using these services. Benefits the fintech, electronic money issuers, because now you'll have bigger business. It also benefits the individuals because the costs will come down. It also benefits the government because some government programs run on this. So the point I'm emphasizing there is collaboration. Even when you look at the oversight framework, it provides for collaboration both within the other regulators, within, and also global or regional collaboration arrangements.
Okay. Thanks. I realize no questions yet from the people that are following this conversation. I hope it is a fair representation that what is being shared here makes a lot of sense, and your fears or challenges seem to be well taken care of. But as probably we get one or two questions coming in, because I also know we probably are running short of our time. Allow me to get to you, Edith, and ask around. First of all, you did share about your experience and the structure that you've put in. I remember I saw when Mr. Om mentioned about the CEO, the founder, the chair of the board, and that became a pain point. And I'm pretty sure it is a pain to very many entities, because it's like you're literally taking away my thing. Who is this person who's coming in as the chair of the board or CEO, supposing they drive it different? And I'd like to hear from you as you're going through these processes of complying with regulation. What has it cost you? And the reason I'm asking this is so that that entity that is on the edges of trying to say, do I qualify, do I not qualify, what has it cost you? Of course, you have the regulatory fees, but I'm pretty sure internally there's a lot of adjustment that has happened, and probably that has come with a cost. So speak to that entity that is not very sure. Just give them a clue, and then probably if there are no questions, Wilbrod, you can also pick it up from there. But Edith.
A bit challenging, but I think I will try. It's clear that the person who innovate, found the company, runs it, and become everything is common for startup. I think, but I'm in that category. And we are trying hard to get out of it. It's not, yes, sometimes it's emotional because it's your baby, because you want to see keeping the direction. But more importantly, it is because of resources. Fintech is a new venture. And to have capable people where trained who combine the technical side and the managerial and the leadership combined together, they are very few. And when you find one, you can't keep him unless you pay the kind of money that the structure cannot generate. So that's the kind of challenges we've been in, and we thank God that we are getting better. I could say that our model that we start with many years back of a bank-led model to be an intermediary with bank, working with bank to bring the financial services to last mile and give a variety of products and services in the same way that the bank offer for the traditional customers. We consistently prayed in that space. It was not very easy because I'm talking from, we started in 10, we tried 2011 to convince Bank of Uganda that these things can work. I remember they were saying, you are issuing an account, then legally, what are you? You are not a financial institution. We went, it took almost 1 year to convince the Bank of Uganda that we can help reach the unbanked and the unserved population and benefit the economy. So what is the agency banking today is what we did actually in 2012. And it has paid, and it has helped us in a way to get a structure. So we are in a position today to restructure the way we are working, we're working as we grow also, and it has come of a huge cost. First of all, we had a board of only 4 people, myself and another shareholder plus 2 other people. So we have to increase the number, meaning the cost. In terms of disaggregation of duties, also we have to expand our staff. It comes with a duty. Now, the most challenging also we face is that we need to have at least 2 how do you call it, for the escrow account, the trustees. That is another experience, because when you approach people, they said, "Oh, you want us to guarantee the money you are operating, and at which cost?" So all these come, at least I think we need to increase certainly our cost of around 30 to 40% in this is substantial. But we understand that there is nothing which happens without a price. We brought to talk about his hair. It can be a money. So there is no way we can have prudential and management systems and compliance system without spending. So I appreciate the Bank of Uganda has given us time to reorganize ourselves. I hope when we cannot meet, it has happened, when we cannot meet one of the deadlines, we have explained and we have been allowed to get more time. So I think it is feasible and it is necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll be honest with you, I want to thank you for being honest and sharing the experience as I think it emerged, as it evolved. So that is always important, because sometimes it's very easy to go into the technicalities, and yet the real things, the small things that really people struggle with. Wilbrod, I don't know. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. You couldn't have chosen a better panelist than Edith. She's shared with us the birth pains. And I sympathize with the challenges that they face in the cost and demands of regulation. That's what it comes with. But they are good apples when you get there. When you reach heaven, you will be surprised.
Don't start talking about heaven.
Not yet. The sky is okay. But yeah, that's what it comes with. I think that luckily we have a regulator who has a full appreciation of the challenges, the journey, and therefore it's possible to dialogue with them. You can imagine suddenly you require boards, you require a compliance person, you require this, when you are not perhaps even breaking even as yet. And I think there can be dialogue in those journeys, timelines, so that you go through a stage. Remember, you have not even reached penalties yet, if something happens. So there's still quite a bit to learn. But I just wanted to comment further on when you said, how can we profile this sector the way tourism, agriculture, industry, and manufacturing is? I think that's another area we really need to work together. And you do that by demonstrating to leaders who are non-fintechs, not in the financial sector, but they're high there in the policy-making organs and legislation, by showing them the sheer contribution that fintechs, tech fins, financial sector is making, either by way of financial inclusion, the generation of additional economic activity, the number of jobs it has created, the taxes it is now bringing on board, and other multiplier enablers. And so that a policymaker suddenly sees that, I think this is really a big sector that is bringing wealth to the country. This is how much it's generating. If we even do it better, this will be its contribution.
Yes.
So they start seeing it differently. They work on the constraints that stop its growth. Okay?
Yes.
Is it right, perhaps, at a certain stage to say impose certain taxes at an infancy stage, or let it first grow, become big, and then you harness, and things like that. Once people at this level understand and appreciate the sheer contribution, they start seeing it differently. But it comes with a lot of work of lobbying to see that they start seeing the sector differently. Countries that have done that have seen their governments shape policy, put in place frameworks that support growth of that sector. And I think those are one of the areas that, again, with FITSPA, together with the regulator, of course, we can continue working on. When you just see, as executive director of the Bankers Association, we only have 36 members. We are not as big as FITSPA. And there are different sizes. There are large banks, there are medium sized, there are very small ones. Recently, there was a proposed capital revision. You know, and there are debates even within the industry, the small ones, the bigger ones, the sort of pains she mentioned. But in all this, they can fit a framework that accommodates everyone. But most importantly, is to highlight the contribution and role that each one plays, big or small. And once that is seen, you find that you quickly work through these things. If you see what the MNO world has done in terms of financial inclusion, today it has brought more people. Recently, we were having a discussion around national switches and the role that MNOs can play. And somebody was kind enough to educate us. We were being a bit arrogant, and he educated us and said, no. Banks, what more friend can you have than an MNO that works for you, brings money from the village, and puts it for you in your bank when you are seated? Isn't that a better friend who you should thank and work with closely? You see? So I think as we highlight this at a policy level, and who is enabling all that happen in the middle of the fintech, as we work more together, when we start appreciating things from that level and highlight them to policymakers, I think the contribution that FITSPA, fintechs, tech fins, and the sector as a whole make will be recognized. Thank you.
I like what the challenge you're presenting is, that how do we better package ourselves and make sure that we're evident, not from just the talk, but from the real value contribution that we are making. That when we go to the policy makers, it's not a story. It is, this is what we are doing. And I think it's a good challenge for us. And probably the timely contribution is from regulation, because now regulation is saying these are the entities that we have given a stamp of approval, and this is the value contribution they are making. And as we bring this to a close, Mr. Oum, there's a question for you. And the question is around, is there room to revise the capital requirements downwards in the interest of increasing innovation, but enabling more industry players? Perhaps this could come with minor licenses and less activities covered. It appears the capital requirements are prohibitive for most homegrown businesses. I think you did touch on this, but probably the person didn't pick it up. If you could give us your take on that, and probably the closing remarks as we prepare for the next session, Mr. Oum.
Thank you, Michael. I think I touched on this.
Yes, you did.
Because we have took a tiered approach, and especially for electronic money issuance. And the initially we had 3 tiers, now we have 6 tiers. So it made us go a step back from micro to small, medium, large. So this provides accommodation.
Yeah.
And of course, it's not yet amended, but it's work that is already before the first Parliamentary Commission and submitted to Finance, and it's work in progress. So this will address this. There's also another window that you go for the, you don't have to get, you pay the higher license, you don't have to do for all the other different classes of license.
Mm-hmm.
here, which is also, you pay the higher one.
Okay.
But even now when we issued, like for Mcash, we electronic money issuance and payment system operator.
Payment service provider and payment system operator. 5 billion.
Yes. 5 billion.
Yeah.
So with the revisions, I think then it will create room. But of course, the law has to be implemented as it is now. And that's why we have had to take a nurturing approach, conditional approvals. Some of these are also to do with the capital. We give you time to make up the capital requirements, the minimum capital requirement, which I think helps to address these challenges.
So as you probably make your concluding remarks and your final shot, the question I have is around governance, because I want you probably to re-echo the importance of governance. That it's not just for the ticking of a box. There is a value proposition around it, because and who do you want to see, or who do you envisage to be in that governance structure? I know you talked about it, founder, CEO, chair, but what is the essence? What is the rationale behind it? So that is not just a requirement for the sake of requirement. And then your closing remarks, and then I'll come to Edith and Wilbrod. Thank you.
As world over, governance issues have been one of the key challenges and why most corporates have failed. We are aware about some cases like Enron, but even if you bring it home, the bank closures that we had in around 98, I think that's when we closed central bank closed about 4 or 5 banks almost at the same time. It all rotated about governance. So governance is key, but like I explained, we see fusion of ownership and governance being a challenge, but because we come from a risk management perspective, when we go through, we evaluate the applications, we see the risks that could arise from that kind of arrangement, and we clearly advise on the way forward. We ask for a plan to diffuse where there's fusion of, I explained earlier, the very interesting one I found was at management level you have shareholders, 40%, 50%, but the CEO is not even a shareholder. How is he going to command these people in terms of ensuring proper, putting in place policies and procedures? We bring lessons from the other side, from the banking side. Mm-hmm. And now the kind of oversight we provide is risk-based. And it's about board and senior management, policies, procedures, systems for reporting, monitoring, risks. And governance tends to be one of the big areas of concern. Of course, you have the big O, the operational risk, but governance issues are still very critical. Mm. But the partner that the fintechs have, that is the central bank, I can attest that these are things we can make straight as we go on, and we will give a corrective advice, and I know that this will gradually be addressed. So we give a time frame, maybe 3 months, 6 months, depending on how we see that this particular concern can be addressed, and without causing a lot of pressure and without stifling what's already going on well. So the law is here, like I said, but I think the most important part I want to emphasize is the part of promoting innovations. I think that's what's relevant for the gathering that is here. And indeed, the law was crafted well to the extent that it made a provision for promoting innovations through this Regulatory Sandbox framework. And what we're doing now at the central bank is building capacity on this, to be able to have a vibrant fintech office within the central bank. And we are doing this capacity internally, but we're also working with development partners and also trying to learn from other countries. And this is, we hope that as we go along, you'll have a good home to come to. So there's a separation of roles. So fintechs, where fintechs are, it's a nursery, it's a division we call Financial Inclusion Division. So that's where the nurturing is done, and when they graduate, they are handed over to the oversight division for licensing.
Okay.
So this is the kind of arrangement that we have. I think it's the great positive that has come with the law.
Okay. I like to thank you because, I mean, you touch on very key. Final one. I don't know how these questions tend to come in because I think you create another level of interest. So there's one final question for you, and that's around infrastructure being hosted locally in the era of cloud computing, and what is the room, or how can you navigate that? What kind of guidance do you give them? I see Edith looking with a lot of interest and saying that one,
Yes.
that one. Mr. Aum, and then we close this off.
You know, we're coming from a risk management perspective. Indeed, there's a section 68, is it still 68, I think so, which talks about a primary data center being at home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, cloud computing does not mean being in the clouds, really. It means maybe your data center could be in South Africa, or it could be in Singapore. But today, increasingly, we have seen challenges which come through. Some of them are political. A country can shut down internet and all these things.
Yes.
Or we had an experience in when the bank had to intervene on one of the banks. We could not get data because all the data was hosted in another country.
Mm.
But it's not a closed chapter. It is something we will continue to study because there's an additional requirement for replication of data.
Mm.
So data will be replicated at the central bank. And these are areas we are looking at. You know, these laws which are with the technology driven and all this, as we go along, maybe there could be some revisions. But we have to work with what's there to get started. Then if we need the good thing, the law may not be easy to amend, but we can issue guidance notes and regulations to ensure smooth transitioning.
Okay.
But there are indeed challenges. These days, things happen the way a country can decide to shut off internet or something, and it becomes difficult for.
But
we're still looking at it. It's an area we'll look at.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I'd like to hear from you your closing remarks, your parting shot. But I'll probably, go to Edith Wilbrod, and then I'll come to Uncle McKay to close this off. Edith, your final remarks as we bring this to a close, and any reflections.
Thank you very much. I conclude by saying that my feeling is that operating under a license will certainly streamline the sector.
Mm-hmm.
And proliferate stronger partnership with different actors. Banks, mainly we operate in banks sector. They feel more comfortable. The government, as Wilbrod was saying, other decision maker believe in a technology as a delivery of services, the digitization of, we are talking today about the digitization of parish model, a number of things which will come real because people are operating under a regulated system. You may also conclude by not raising an issue, but highlight point that I have raised in a CEO meeting to Mr. McKay is that how much the rest of the law enforcement bodies are aware, understand the sector of fintech, to be able to settle issues in real time and protect at the same time our work. Certainly, the law, the license bring a certain level of safety and efficiency. Still, we are operating in a world where cyber security is an issue, and how much out there our judge, our tribunal understand and can solve. This is something I would leave as a food for thought for Bank of Uganda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Wilbrod.
Thank you very much. For me, first of all, is to thank FITSPA for this session. I think my parting shots are that there is still work for all of us, FITSPA and the industry across, that I speak for. But luckily, we are very lucky, there is now a law and a framework for oversight. We are also lucky that we have a very good regulator. The timing couldn't have been better, that they are willing to listen. And this is my message. I want it very clear that I think within the private sector players, under the umbrella of FITSPA, under the umbrella of UBA, together, and in the presence of regulation now and the organizational framework at Central Bank, there is capacity in the country now to shape the future of the payments ecosystem. I would like the regulator to allow that space to be driven by the FITSPA, the UBA, and you have oversight so that we have homegrown solutions and shape our ecosystem within the regulated framework. And of course, no doubt we can benchmark on other international payment systems for best practices and robustness. But there is capacity, it is well demonstrated, and I think let's work together to build our ecosystem in the country, running on the framework that has already been enabled by the National Payment Systems Act. Thank you.
So what I'm hearing you, Wilbrod, say is trust us a little bit more and we'll give you much more than you think we can deliver. Mr. Mackay, Aum, as we bring this to a close.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michael. I just missed to mention that there's a lot of collaboration that is going on. All these things are not being done by the Central Bank alone. Central Bank is working with Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. Minister of Finance is very, very supportive. The Bank Association, the Fintechs. So like Wilbrod has really summed it up, it's about collaboration and continuous engagements. We have contacts, just a telephone call away. Edith was commended, one of my colleagues, Andrew, that you can call us even at midnight. I think we get calls, strange calls sometimes. So this is the kind of thing, these collaborations, and indeed we have taken a two-pronged approach, I would say. But let me emphasize the one side, promoting e-payments. This is the key thing in the Central Bank strategic plan. And we have come up with what we call a National Payment System Strategy. But it draws on all of you as collaborators, and we have come up with an action matrix going all the way to developing infrastructure. Wilbur talked about how we can pull some funds together. We are talking about national switch out can work best. But the Bank of Uganda may kickstart some processes, but ultimately we hand it over to the participants to continue with it. And that is what we see happening in most countries. Of course, we have to promote these innovations, technology issues which are coming. Yesterday, I attended a webinar, and it was about, they were talking about central bank digital currencies, and as if it's beginning to show that there could be an what they call hybrid. And so indeed, technology is going to be the driver of this. And I think countries like Ghana and Nigeria, who are already thinking in this direction, one of the first things they did was to organize their infrastructure. Once the infrastructure is okay, you can be able to move. But we have to do a lot of digital awareness, financial literacy awareness, and we have to do some reforms as we go on. And again, I want to appreciate other regulators like UCC, the one for UBRA, UMRA, and all the others. And UBA, I want to thank Wilbrod a lot. You are doing a lot of work to make sure that this sector can grow. And so through this arrangement, there's nothing we'll do without consulting and engaging you. We are going to move into discussing the consumer protection regulations next. And again, we shall get you involved. We already had some workshops where I went through this. So it's going to be, I think what's coming out here is continuous engagement, because this is a private sector-led growth.
Thank you very much, our panelists. Thank you, Uncle McKay, but let me use your full name, Mr. McKay Aum. And yes, I think it is evident that the direction of the regulator is to support and not to hold a big cane to make sure that everybody complies. But also, thank you, Mrs. Edith Kutesa, for really speaking from the real experience and not creating an impression that everything is all well. I'm sure this conversation could have gone on and on. And Wilbrod, yeah, I want to say, like big brother, I've been there, guys. Don't feel it's tough, but we are happy to work with you. So Wilbrod Wall from Bankers Association, I think your contribution to this conversation is extremely important and very helpful. And so we bring this to a close, and we're ready to move to the next two panel sessions. There are two parallel sessions. We have one on the role of fintechs in financing national development priorities and SDGs in the main happening here. And that will be moderated by my brother, Richard Ndahiro. And then big data, open APIs, and security that is happening the other side in Kyoga, that is being moderated by Silva Kayondo. And so to this, I bring it to a close, and thank you very, very much for your contribution, but also investing your time in this. Thank you. We go to the next session. Thank you. Richard, please come and take over.